Hello, this is Chala Dincoy. Welcome to another edition of my podcast, Naked Marketing, where clearly none of us are naked, but we are going to get naked and honest about Jeff's mistakes. I've talked about all my mistakes. Now you've got a new victim here. Welcome, Jeff.
It's great to be here, Chala. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about that conversation starter behind you because we have so much more interesting things to talk about. But tell us who you help and what you do for a living.
So I am, I guess, best classified as an IT marketer, and I never really dreamt that I'd be one of those. I kind of made it up. I help CIOs, so Chief Information Officers. I help them market their services within their own organizations. So as a CIO, you're in sales, you're in marketing, and you have to be able to spread the word throughout your organization. So I help CIOs do that. On the other side of the desk, I help tech companies market to the CIO. I become the voice of the CIO, having spent 40 years in IT up to this point. I've sat in that chair and I know what the challenges are, and so I can help tech companies decipher that and reach the CIO in a meaningful way.
My goodness. Okay, so there's two parts to the business, or are they two different businesses?
There are two parts to the business. I can't just have one thing. I have to have multiple things.
Gotcha. And so the one is you're helping the CIO with his career advancement?
Somewhat, but so as a CIO, you have initiatives and programs and ideas that you have to sell and market within your organization to have them achieved. So it may be as simple as helping them with a proposal and a keynote presentation that they're having to do for a board meeting on some new initiative, or it may be coaching their team members how to effectively communicate complex technical topics with a non-technical audience.
Well, I tell you, you know that you probably don't know, but I have another podcast called Polish My Pitch, and I'm just itching to get you on there because the number one question that I ask is, what is the problem? What is the most expensive problem that you solve for that CIO, if it's the CIO that's hiring you versus if it's the company that's hiring you? And then we make that into a soundbite. So that's great. And it sounds
excellent.
But it sounds like the most expensive problem that you would solve for that CIO would be the inability to pass budget or inability to get projects approved, or
get to kind of earn that seat at the table and be taken seriously as part of the C-suite. One example, I've got a client who is in charge of a global organization, and he has to be able to have all the regional IT departments across the world use his services. Because that's more effective for the company. Well, in order to do that, you're kind of like an external service provider selling those services into your own organization. And so I'm helping him with that communication strategy.
That's great. Okay. So then the other part is literally just selling, right? Helping the tech companies sell to corporations.
Absolutely, because no CIO answers the phone. So if you're calling them, they're not going to answer. They don't really answer email. So how do you earn the trust and get in front of the CIO if that's your sales target? And it can be very difficult to do.
Well, now you have to tell us, how do you do
that? Well, I'm a big believer in content marketing. And so I think the initial step is to start following the CIO. If they're posting on social media, what are they talking about? What are they commenting on? Try to link with them on LinkedIn, make comments on what they're sharing. A lot of CIOs are doing their own writing and sharing of their thoughts. Follow them and try to connect with them. And then you start building that trust that you're part of their audience. Share content with them. If I'm a CIO and I'm struggling with the big news right now is cybersecurity and ransomware. It's on the top of mind for every CIO. Share articles with them that would be helpful. And again, you're earning that trust before you reach out and make that phone call. That way they're more likely to answer the call.
I got you. So, of the two businesses, which is the one that you would like to double, or which is the one that you is biggest, or however that works?
The side of the CIO is the one that's growing. I started out working with tech companies on the sales side. And now that the CIO related business is the part that's growing, and it has now equaled in size from my business perspective, has equaled in size. So those are two very equal product streams, so to speak.
That's great. And which one do you want to grow
I
faster?
want to grow the one with the CIOs.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
nice. Very
yeah.
nice. Now, how did you get started in IT?
Well, and I know that's one of the reasons why we connected for your program. When I was in high school, the only thing I ever wanted to do was be a rock star.
Uh-huh.
I spent hours and hours practicing guitar, writing songs. I was going to be the next Mick Jagger or John Lennon or whoever, right? I even went to college to major in music theory and composition.
Wow.
I found out very, very quickly that you had to have talent, and I did not.
You don't have talent.
So I was lost. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and this would have been the late 70s, early 80s, to date myself.
Uh-huh.
And this new thing came out on the market, the Commodore 64. It was a small computer for the home, and I bought one, and I fell in love with it.
Wow.
I could almost play this thing like an instrument, right? I could write code, I could write software, and get this computer to do the things that I wanted it to do. And so I just devoured everything I could find on IT, system development lifecycle, different programming language. And I kind of self-taught myself IT, and eventually broke into the IT department at the bank I was working for, and became an IT professional. And
Wow.
at some point in my career, I made that jump into management and applied the same thing. This lifelong thirst for learning that I learned in the early 80s. I read all the management books. I observed other people around me and learned management, and found that I loved that as much as I loved the writing of the code. And that career kind of led me to this concept of being an IT marketer, because I was a CIO, a chief information officer, and I started writing blogs. I started being on podcasts. This was 15 years ago, and found that my message internally with my organization resonated more because I had these external thought leadership articles on this platform or that platform, or I was on this podcast or that podcast. So I started leveraging that and turned it into a business.
Very nice. Yes. I mean, I spent probably as many years, 18 years in corporate Pepsi, Pizza, Frito-Lay. I was a corporate slave, as I like to call myself. I did learn a lot there, and I made some cash, but there is nothing like having your own business, is there?
There is not. I am loving it.
So did you start 15 years ago like I did?
No, I launched my business officially about a year and a half ago.
Oh my God, congratulations. During COVID, what happened?
Well, if I say I took advantage of, maybe that's probably not the right way to say it, but so I was working for a large tech company, and we were looking at having to do some downsizing because of COVID and readjusting our projections. And I wanted to start this business. So I raised my hand and said, I'd like to figure out a way that we could make this work. And so we came up with the idea. They actually became my first client.
Oh, I love it.
And they're still my largest client. And so I get to do the thing I love, and I still get to do the things for them. I do things like I host their podcast. We do a technology-based podcast. I write content for them for Forbes. I do webinars and webcasts, all those parts of my job that I loved doing. that ended up being a key part of my business now, and they became my client.
That's fabulous. Oh my God. So now this is a show about marketing. So
Uh-huh.
we're going to talk about marketing. So what was the biggest marketing mistake that you made?
Wow. I'd say the biggest marketing mistake that I've made is not leading with my passion. And by that, I mean, um, here I am. I'm a career IT professional, and everybody would have thought if Jeff Tunn started a business, it would be in IT consulting. And so I actually started that business, and found that that's not really where my passion was. My passion was in this concept of selling IT internally, marketing IT, and it took some hard knocks to realize that.
Wow. I mean, based on the 18 years that I was telling you, one of the things that I had to do is we launched new products every year, like 7 to 10 new products. And I had to figure out the positioning for each of the products. And
Mhm.
so now that's what I do for a living. So when I have a client like you who's a consultant, and I've had so many like you who've recareered,
Mhm.
and like they've just left their job or they've just retired. So what the first thing we do, and gosh, I wish I had met you 2 years ago so that you didn't have to go through the hard knocks, but we actually concept test some of those things so that you
Mhm.
don't have to throw spaghetti at the wall and find out through trial and error. And then we
Yeah.
find them something called a super niche, where they are an expert in one thing, and we position it to a very specific target and message it. And so that, that's how they make a ton of
Yeah.
money right off the gate. But my gosh, I'm glad that you finally figured it out, because you're right, it is a big mistake that a lot.
Well, I think you're right, because this was so I started a consulting business years ago, and it didn't work.
Wow.
And I think it didn't work for that exact same reason we're talking about, is finding the passion. And it wasn't until I came up with this vision of what my business is trying to do. And I talk about it in this way: I'm changing the face of IT,
Mm.
because I think the leadership skills that got many of us to the positions of leadership are not the skills our businesses need today or are demanding in the future. And that encompasses a lot of things: business acumen, communication, collaboration, strategic thinking, design thinking, and diversity. So, one of the things I'm really focused on is driving diversity in the ranks of information technology, because the problems we are trying to solve are so complex. We need diversity of thought. We need diversity of experience. We need diversity of background in order to solve these challenges. And so that's what I'm dedicating this part of my career to. And
Mm.
I'm really passionate about it. And that's leading to great business results.
Well, that's great, because, and I just want to put a caveat, because I've always taught people that you need to find the sweet spot of your niche where passion meets demand in market. Because I have met so many businesses who only base their niche on their passion, like this woman whose mother died unexpectedly, and she became a grief coach, and she had not done one lick of looking
Mhm.
out to see what people were looking for or needed, and the market just didn't need her at that price, because people were already offering that for free through their hospice, through their hospital, through their
Yeah.
church. So she starved and bartered for years before figuring out that her passion was not what the market wanted, so she had to re-niche. So I mean, I'm so grateful that it worked out for you, but just passion alone, it has to be married with what you found, which is that market demand, right?
Absolutely. And it took a while to find that market. Once I settled on kind of my passion in that niche, right? Then you've got to get the word out and
Yeah.
talk to the right people, continue to have conversations. And I'd say, looking back on this iteration of my business over the last year and a half, is it wasn't until, gosh, the first part of this year that I discovered the market, right? I've been talking about these things for quite a while. And in the last 4 or 5 months, things have taken off because I found the market. right? I found those IT leaders who need this message and need to solve this problem.
And Jeff, I consider that a short amount of time because,
Absolutely.
as I said, there are businesses who are like just throwing spaghetti at the wall for years, and they run out of funds and they run out of, mindset and steam. And it's a heartbreak. I mean, why do you think the statistics are what they are, right? In terms
Right,
of
right.
survival. So I'm really, really happy. So let me ask you a little bit more about marketing. Now, I know that you're a content, guy, but tell me how you get clients for your consulting.
Wow. So I get clients a lot through professional networks. So I run a professional network. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana,
Oh,
and I have a professional network of CIOs and IT leaders that I've been running for about 10 years.
mhm.
I started it when I was a CIO, and that's now my primary client base, if you will. I mean, that's where I go to because I'm known to them. They understand. They see what I was able to do in my career, and in a lot of cases, they want to do those same things.
Mm.
And so, through my content, public speaking, my writing, I've written a couple of books. That's where the draw comes from. I'd say when I think about my clients, um, my current client base, I'd say 80% have come through that network. The other 10% have come through word of mouth from clients that I did a great job for, and then they tell their friends. So
Yeah.
it starts with that content. That's really where it began, and like I say, I've been producing that content for a long, long time.
But it sounds like the network is stronger than the content as a generator.
Definitely as a lead generator, yes. And that was not the intent
Mhm.
for that group. Originally, it was a group of like-minded people who wanted to get together and talk shop.
Uh-huh.
And then it became a content generator because part of what I would write about is some of the things that we talked about in that group. And then when I got this idea for launching this business, that's the group that I tapped into.
Got it.
And you know, I think I think the advantage that I had and the reason why my life cycle was a little shorter than, or a lot shorter than in some cases, is because I already was a trusted advisor
Mm.
to them through that network.
That's fabulous. That is really great. So do you have any parting advice on marketing to our viewers and listeners?
I'd say my biggest piece of advice is to use a multi-channel approach. And what everybody talks about multi-channel, but I think if you're consistent across your channels, that starts to build your brand. And so whether it's podcasting, whether it's writing for various outlets, whether it's doing webinars and webcasts, the consistency across that is important so that the voice is the same across all of those. The media might be different, but the voice is the same.
That's very true. And how could people reach you, Jeff?
I'm great on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Jeffrey S. Tunn out on LinkedIn, or you can visit my website, www.jeffreystunn.com, and find me there.
Thank you so much for being a guest, Jeff.
Thank you for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed it.